Alright, back again, fourth video, just for the What Hi-Fi lads, just hopefully to give you a little bit of a help. The last video was a long one, you know, we'll see if that actually I can even get that on YouTube. It might be a little bit too long. Right, so we're quickly looking at obviously other ways to analyse what we've got here. So this is just your frequency. You know, I mentioned in the last video just how bad, you know, it really is. It's absolutely horrendous when you look at it, and I'll be surprised, you know, if you get anything better than this in your measurements, you're really lucky. There's a good chance it could be considerably worse than this. But this is the seeing the frequency response, seeing how bad it is. It's the heartbreaking, eye-opening reality of what I'm actually listening to is horrendous, really, from a frequency point of view. It's absolutely horrendous, but it doesn't actually sound bad. You sit and listen to it, and it actually can sound absolutely fantastic. But the reality is, it can sound a whole lot better from a frequency point of view. But that's not the only thing we're looking at. There's other things to look at as well. I mean, I only know the basics. I don't claim to be an expert. Other people know a hell of a lot more than me. But when it comes to actually looking more at the room and the room's effects, this is basically a waterfall graph, and the waterfall graph is literally a plot of decay for frequency. So normally it would be 300. I think that's what it gives you as standard, like as a stock measurement. Now 300 is a very low. 300 milliseconds is very low. So this is really more of a look at kind of room echoes and stuff. You can look at frequency too in this, because you can see again like the peaks and troughs as it tracks the terrible frequency response of, you know, in my room. But this is where obviously some of the room treatment really pays dividends, because if you look at the decay, look along this line. Now, this is 300 milliseconds. This is quite a short time for a waterfall plot. All, you know, it's again along the bottom is frequency, and this is obviously volume, but really we're looking at frequency here. So well, it stops at, well, it appears to stop at 4 kilohertz. No, 5 kilohertz. Look, 5 kilohertz is my measurement. That was the cut-off point. And if you look from 5 kilohertz, literally all the way to 70 hertz, so that's the whole range. If you look how even the actual decay is. It's really fast. It's decaying within less than 200 milliseconds. And that is obviously as a result of a lot of absorption in the room, a lot of room treatment. So you've got a very fast decay. Now the benefit of that is obviously the sound coming out of the speakers is there and gone at the listening position. So if you think about this constant sound coming out of, you know, your 2 speakers, or it could be 5 speakers, 7 speakers, Atmos, 11 speakers, constant sound coming into the room, and the longer that lingers, the longer that is there in the way of the next sound. So for me personally, I've ended up with it, you know, extremely trying to fix the bass problems with absorption. I've ended up with an extremely tight decay in the room, with the exception when we start getting into the bass. Now 30 hertz is a huge problem for me in my room. It gives you a lovely amount of rumble for films. However, it also rattles the hell out of double doors we've got leading through into our extension. That was a mistake to put them in, but it's like really nice wooden glass double doors. They rattle the hell, and it's a nightmare. That's been a nightmare. So I'll talk about that quickly in a second. But if you look here, this is now a problematic range, sort of, you know, 50, 60, 70 hertz. But I think with bass, I think the accepted time is 600 milliseconds, hence why that's what it wants to start with. So we go to change this, we go up into control, and we've got time in range. Change that to 600 milliseconds, and that it just extends the time. So we're analysing now for a longer reverb, a longer echo of the room. And as you can see, the difference. Previously we had a huge amount of 30 hertz bass, i.e. this build up here, this solid colour, is a huge build up of bass still in the room at 600 milliseconds, and it's still there. We'll talk about that in a second. But there was still lingering bass sort of right between the sort of 50 and 70 hertz range. Now that's pretty much gone. As we can see, the 60 and 70 hertz bass is gone by about, looking at this track, these lines here, about, you know, 500-ish, or actually less, probably 400, probably less than that, say 350 milliseconds. So the majority of the sound is decayed from right high frequency, 5 kilohertz, right down to deeper bass, 50 hertz. So for music, 50 hertz, it's all decayed very linear, very even. So, you know, this is then, when we're looking at room treatments and the effects of room treatments, this is one thing that we can look at as a target. Now, if you look at a different waterfall, you'll see that it's all over the place. So not only have we got frequency that's undulating, you know, and very variable. We've also got delay and decay variances as well. So this room's got a lot of treatment in, as I say, and you can see where this is reduced, or this we can't see, but this has reduced the decay time considerably. Now, when you measure, you might have more of this situation where you've got, you know, massive, it's basically echo, massive ringing, where basically the sound wave is building up in the room because it's reflecting off the walls and not being absorbed. So where you've got here 30 hertz is lingering, and you can still see there's a massive amount of energy at 600 milliseconds here. The rest of the sound is gone. Now, if you've got sound in other bass ranges coming out here, then we've got, you know, lingering sound basically. So we've got, not only have we got a problem of like different volumes of sound, we've also got different rates that they decay. So this is actually an area that's, personally from experience, is worth paying attention to, because the quicker it's there and gone, the cleaner the next note is going to be, if that makes sense. The cleaner the notes are going to be, because you've not got the previous sound lingering in the way of the next sound. It's literally as simple as that, and that can be high frequency all the way through to low frequency, and then depending on your room shape, size, you know, construction, will affect this. So just quickly looking at the 30 hertz region. Again, this is movies. You can see there's a monstrous amount of energy in this room. This must be basically a longitudinal wave based on the length of the room or the width of the room or whatever, but you get a huge amount of build up right by where I sit at 30 hertz. So to see actually how long it takes for a 30 hertz note to decay, if we extend the time to 900 milliseconds, we can see now that it's gone. I mean, there's a little anomaly here at 50 hertz. I've always had a little bit of 50 hertz ringing in this room, and it's there, you know, you can see it. It's been like it. I've got lots of measurements where it's there, so that's probably a problem frequency, and this, you know, where I sit is a slight reflection. But really the big one is the 30 hertz, because it's deep bass for films. It's lovely having that amount of deep bass for films. You get, you know, it gives you huge impact and stuff, but as I say, it does tend to rattle a hell of a lot of things. So that's been a problem area. But you can see, what you can see hopefully here is, see how far up, you know, and how quickly that green is gone. You know, so basically, if you can imagine, this is sound coming out in 3D. I probably should have explained this at the start. So this is sound coming forward in a 3D fashion as frequency changes. So we're high frequency at this end and low frequency bass frequency at this end. And if you see 30 hertz, that, you know, it's like a grid basically, and as this is literally coming out to this line here, and this line here corresponds to up here, so 720 and 900 milliseconds. So bass is decaying in my room at 30 hertz at about 700 milliseconds, but the rest is decaying very, very fast, so within sort of 300 or 400 milliseconds. So that's an indicator of like tight sound. That's one indicator obviously of tight sound. So again, at the top, you know, this is our tabs. We've got SPL and phase, and we can see, look, you know, part of the reason I get very deep bass is because it's quite modal. So that means that actual bass isn't that clean in the low end. But I think in a small room that's way too small to for a bass wave of that size to form, we might have to take that on the chin, in a sense of, you know, it's better to have unclean bass at that frequency range than have nothing at all. When you consider the bass above it, in my room where I sit currently, 30 to 50 hertz, it's terrible. That's a major problem, and this is an area that, you know, is that, you know, that I need to concentrate on. But, you know, it's one thing at a time. Okay, so the next video will be looking at a little bit RT60, spectrogram, just a quick look at those different ways of analysing the room. So yeah, thanks.